What the GameStop and Robinhood situation teaches us about the future of Bitcoin. The saga of GameStop and Robinhood and the preceding government intervention has been interesting to watch from the outside world and would be a wild ride if you were involved. However, there are many lessons to be learned in this situation, and one of them is how the future of Bitcoin could eventuate. A lot of people have been talking about this scenario, but no one has been projecting, well, if this happened here, how can we use this to predict what will happen on similar events in the future? In short, the situation revolves around the small guy finding a loophole and exploiting it. The big guy is damaged and the government and other established companies step in to make it hard and regulate the situation going forward. Meanwhile, the big guys have been able to exploit similar situations forever with no intervention. That's a real basic summary of my theories of how this situation has been going on at the moment from what I have heard. I'm avoiding going into specific details about it because that's not the lesson here and it's already been covered by anyone and everyone, so you can easily find that information. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard all about it and the situation changes every day. Instead, I want to focus on the lessons we can learn from it and how I see similar situations playing out with Bitcoin. For a while now, Bitcoin has been labeled by some as a method for criminals to transmit money undetected. Now, I grew up on movies and documentaries with drug kingpins using US dollars, so the idea that Bitcoin is bad because criminals use it is pretty hypocritical. Obviously, some of the lack of tracking and control means that Bitcoin is currently more enticing to criminals. However, last I heard, even the Mexican cartels seem to use US dollars as their money of choice. So just because criminals use something doesn't inherently make it bad. However, it does provide an excuse to say it needs to be regulated more. Bitcoin has been touted as a viable alternative to government-issued currencies. But it's completely delusional to think that governments would allow an unregulated currency to take over or even legitimately compete with their established currencies. The problem for Bitcoin becoming a more established currency that is frequently used is that at some point, as it gets close to being used on a major scale or of any relevance, it's going to get some form of government intervention. Now, you might say people use it for all types of purposes now, but while that might be true, it's not at a major scale to remotely compete with established currencies. As Bitcoin gets used more widely, if it even does, then we are bound to see a situation like the current where someone finds an exploit that works for them, it garners international attention, then governments have an excuse to get involved and regulate it. Some people talk about how Uber or Airbnb took on those major established industries and changed them. That may be true, but the end controller of hotels or taxis were companies. With currencies, the government ultimately controls them. The last thing governments are interested in is allowing control to slip, especially on something so major. It's easy to just say that's for the US, but it's every government. EU, Canada, UK, here in Australia, and so on. The governments aren't just going to lie down and let a new currency replace their own. With Airbnb and Uber, they tax those and regulate them, so the government is still getting their cut of the sale. In fact, to the government, it's probably about the same. And this intervention won't just be from the government, there'll be big institutions around it that will also step in to prevent it. This is not to say that Bitcoin is not a good investment or doesn't have potential and so on. However, it is to say that as it becomes more widely used, there are going to be major interventions by the established organizations and the government. We don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin, but it's not going to be easy for Bitcoin as it gets bigger. These are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your input in the comments, and as always, good luck.